Okay. Now, so this is the computer we logged in, right? Last time we saw how we become root. We type sudo dash, okay? Or if you want more simpler, you can just do sudo dash I. Either way, it's the same thing. So now we become root, okay? Regular user gets $, and root user gets a pound sign. Okay, let's create a user account. It's very simple. Let's say we create the user account John Doe. Okay, hit enter. Remember last time we talked about the information is populated into 3 different files. Let's see password. See the JDO, right? Let's see shadow file. Here it is. And XC group. Okay. Now, let's say, let's assign the user a password. When you assign the password, you will not be able to see the characters. I typed a very simple password. The computer complained that this is a password which is shorter than 7 characters and bad password because very weak. Okay, there is something called what is the technology command? I'm trying to remember brute force. There is a attack called brute force hackers use to log into a computer. Okay, basically what it does is it uses every single combination of the keyboard and try to find the password. So let's say, for example, you can go to Google also. That's also another thing. Like this one, this website. Don't try type the real password because you never know who is on the back side. How secure is my password? Okay, let's use this website. So you enter the password. Let's say security. Okay. Okay. So let's say I type, for example, let's say I want to give my password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So here it says that if you use this password, then somebody will take probably less than a second to hack this password. So let's say I use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's see. Still it says that somebody will be able to hack into this password within a second. Okay. Let's use another one. Let's say this is a test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, to use the keyboard combination, a computer has to try 2 trillion years to break this password. But remember, this is a very long password. This is a test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's say if I do 999, it says instantly. Let's use 6 9s, 8 9s. See, it says 200 milliseconds. Anyway, so the computer complains that the password I typed is very weak, right? Now, let's become the user. So since we assign the password, remember After assigning the password, it updates the shadow file. See, before when we saw the shadow file, it was JDO with 2 exclamation marks. This time JDO has password with what is called salting. So the first part is the password, second part is the salt. Salt meaning, let's say you mixed with sugar and salt together. Okay. And now you put some sand on it. Now to separate them, it will be even much more complicated. Okay. This is just an analogy. Now, so let's become that user. Let's say anytime we want to become another user, we type su dash and then the username. Su meaning super user. As a super user, I can become any user I want. That's exactly what it means. Okay. As a root, it will not ask me for the password. All right. So let's say I hit enter. See, I become JDO. It says right here. Now, if I want to become root, let's say if I type su dash, the computer will ask me for the root password, and I don't know the root password. Okay, so there is a mechanism for it. And root again. There is a file called sudoers. Let's see. Okay, there is a file called etc sudoers. Okay, on that file, see the root line? It says root can do whatever it wants. So what we'll do is we'll put the user on that line and let's see what happens. So let's edit that file. To edit that file, the command is sudo together. Okay. Now let's go to the root line. Okay, let's search for root. Okay, where is the root? Okay, let's copy this line. JDOE. Okay, we just created another line with that user. Now let's become root. So let's become John Doe. And now if I want to become root, if I type sudo su dash, the computer is asking me provide the password for this user, not for the root user. So whatever password I was assigned, I just type that and now I become root. Okay, so this is a very important file and that will be definitely on your interview question, that you want to give root privilege to somebody, but you don't want to give the root password. Okay, see, this user John Doe doesn't know the root password. Okay, he doesn't have any clue about the root password. So if this user leaves the company, all you have to do is you don't have to change the root password. All you have to delete his user account, and that's it. So how do we delete the user account? First of all, you cannot delete the user that is already logged in. Okay, so let's say if I want to delete the user account, the command is userdel user delete, then r jdo. What is r? R, if you use r, okay, let me create another user account, then we'll delete. Let's say user add jdoe1. Okay. Once you create a user account, their home directory goes under /home. See, jdo and jdo1. and information goes to 3 different files. Etc home, sorry, etc password, right? These 2 user accounts, right? etc group, sorry, etc shadow. This is the user account. JDO, we assign the password. JDO1, we didn't assign the password yet.
Sorry, just one question, brother. You said that if someone leave the company, so the account, user account cannot be deleted. Is that right?
No. User account should be deleted. What I said is, if the user already logged in, then the system will complain that you cannot log in, you cannot delete his user account. So if somebody leaves your company, most likely he is not logged in. And still, there is a way to delete the user account, even if he is logged in. This is what happens. Say somebody, let's say the company decided that they want to fire somebody, and he is already working today. All they will do is, on his backend, without letting him know, first they will delete his user account. And then, this is what I saw before. Like one guy in one company I used to work, and he used to sit right next to me, and the management decided to fire him. So what they did is, he doesn't have any clue. He logged into his computer and his whatever he does every day, he was doing it. And then all of a sudden, I saw 2 security guys came next to him, standing next to his chair, and they said, "Dude, you have to go." And that's it.
Okay.
Okay. This is what in a lot of companies they do in IT, because if they want to fire somebody, they don't let them know before, because if somebody knows, he can do a lot of harm to that company, to that computer.
Even though if you're leaving for a month or so, your password and all this information doesn't work.
Yeah, your user accounts are locked. We'll see how to lock the user accounts.
Okay.
Okay. So now let's say we want to delete both user accounts. One we use UAE, okay, and one we use, let's say, with the dash. Okay, let's see what happens. Look at the first one. We didn't use the dash. Okay. See, the one we use the dash, it deleted its home directory. Okay, so dash R is for, dash R basically said, delete the user account along with its home directory. This one said, delete the user account, but don't delete his home directory. Why? Because a lot of time when somebody works for a company, they do a lot of work for that company. And the company want to preserve whatever he did before. Okay, that's why they delete the user account, but don't delete the home directory. Because usually, whatever you do, it's in your home directory. Okay, if you look at the etc password file, see both user accounts are gone. JDO1 is not there anymore. If you look at the etc shadow, see those user accounts are gone. If you look at the etc group, those user accounts are gone. Okay, now let's do it again. Let's create a user account. Again, let's say JDO. Okay, see, it says that the user account you are trying to create, a home directory already exists with that name. Okay, so you do not copy whatever was there before. Okay, so you have to be careful on that also. Now let's say we want to create a new user account. Okay, anytime you create a user account, let's go there. Okay. As you can see, there is nothing can be seen. But if we do ls-a, then it shows 3 files are automatically created. Where does that come from? It comes from a directory called etc skeleton. Okay, see these 3 files? It is always come from this directory. Now, let's say we want to create, we are on etc skeleton directory. Okay, after this, we'll take a break for about 10 minutes for answer. All right, so let's say we want to create a new file. Let's say we want to call it, for example, let's say .pet. We want to create this file. Oops. And on that .pet file, let's say we'll put export meaning make it active, path equal to $path colon, let's say $pwd. Okay, and we just leave it there. Now let's create a user account. Let's say we'll call it JDO3. Let's go to JDO3's home directory. ls, nothing can be seen, ls-a. See that .path file is on this computer, on this user's home directory. So this is how companies create user profiles. Let's say they want to give you, let's say you join this company, they want to give you some type of environment. Okay, they want to give you some type of environment. So what they do is, instead of giving it individually, they create that information on the etc skeleton directory, etc skel, right, on that directory, and then whatever the user account can be created, it will be copied from there, right? If we look at ls-a etc skel, okay, we see that .pet file. So what did it do? If we do env, for example, now let's become that user, JDO number 3. Okay, if we look at see, it shows the path, and whatever we put, remember we put $pwd. $pwd meaning wherever I am, make it my path also. Okay, so let's take it's now, time is now 7:05. Let's come back 7:20. Okay, and we'll go from there. Would like to finish the user account information today. All right, so let's come back at 7:20. Okay, I'm back. Are you still having issues hearing me, or hopefully by next class I'll fix it? Let's see.
So far,
Can
I
you hear me?
think I think the speaker or mouth is far from you. That's why it's something echo
I
always.
cannot hear anyone. Can you hear me or no?
Yes.
Okay, then if you can hear me, then let's resume. So now, so I have two instances, right? I have two instances of EC2 running. Okay, as you can see here.
Yes, so now it's much
So
better.
I logged into
Thank you.
both. Similar process, I use the same private key, public key stuff. Now, let's say, let's create one more user account. Let's say we'll call it user add JDOE5. Let's assign a password, JDOE5. So I am on this computer. This computer's IP is 172.31.1.23. Okay. Here I'm logged into my other computer. Let me change the settings. Variance change 16 volt. Okay, apply. Come on. Okay. Now, I logged into two computers. This is one. I created a user account called John Doe, JDoe5. Let me create the same user account over here on other computer. User add JDOE number 5. And let's assign a password. So let's say when you work in a company, right, you will not be working on one computer. You will be working on lots and lots of computers. So basically, you will be logging into, you will be moving into to and from computer to computer all the time. Okay. Now, let's say I have the same user account on this computer and on this computer also. Let's say our company is small. We don't have any centralized naming server such as LDAP or Active Directory, which we'll take a look at it later on, how your user accounts can be centralized. So if one user log into the company, you don't have to go computer to computer to delete their user account. Or if somebody joins the company, you don't have to go computer to computer to create their user accounts. All you have to do is just create a central account and then his computer account will be populated. But anyway, you have to log in from computer to computer. So as you can see here, let me change this computer's name. Let's say we'll call it, we all know how to change the computer's name. We edit the etc hostname file. Okay, delete this line. Let's say we'll call it server1.example.com. Reboot this machine. Okay, and let's say we'll call this one server2. SERV2.example. Let's say our domain name is example.com, and let's reboot this machine. Okay. Rebooted. Let's go to party again, and let's see if we can restart the session. Nope, it's still rebooting. Sometimes when you reboot, the IP address changes, so you will not be able to do the restart session. Later on, once we go to the AWS course, we'll see how we can tell the computer not to change the password. This computer's IP was restart the session will not work on this. Let's see if it works on this. Restart session, no. Oh, okay. EC2 dash. Okay. So now this is server 2. And get this computers. This one's password was 215.2. So my party session is saved. EC2-user. Okay. So I have two machines, server 1 and server 2. And on this computer, before we reboot, we created and assigned a password to a user account called John Doe 5, right? This computer also should have a file user called John Doe 5, and we did assign the password. As a regular user, as a EC2 user, we cannot open the shadow file. Remember last time we showed you the permission, right? ls-l etc shadow. Okay. Remember we talked about RWX. That means the root. Even the root doesn't have the read permission. Anyway, so let's try to log in to this computer. This computer's IP address is. Oops. How do you see a computer's IP address? If you are on Windows, this is my DOS. Then you type ipconfig. Okay, you will see your computer's IP address. So my laptop, the computer I'm working on, it has 192.168.1.24, right? On this computer, on Linux, we do ifconfig-a. So this computer's IP address is 172.31.11.172. Okay, once we study the TCP IP, we'll talk about all these. What does this mean? What does this mean? What does this Ethernet mean? What does RX, TX, all those things mean? Anyway, so this computer's IP address is 172.31.11.172. This computer's IP address is 172.31.1.23. Right? Now, let's say from this computer, we want to log in to this computer as John Doe or J Doe 5. So we type SSH. You can do it either way. L J Doe JDOE 5, and then the IP address. Okay, it should work this way. Okay, it is asking, do you want to accept the fingerprint? We say yes, and the computer says the permission denied. Now, let's say from this computer, let's try the same thing. SSH this time instead of L, let's use the name at the IP address of this machine. The IP address of this machine is 23. Okay, let's see what happens. It is asking, do you want to accept the fingerprint? We say yes. The computer says, no, sorry. I need the public key. Your password authentication is denied. Okay, this is permission denied. Now, by default, on all EC2s, the password authentication is denied. Okay, so let's make it active. Let's see how we do that. First of all, we have to become root because we are changing a configuration file. So sudo dash. Okay, the file called. Remember on the one of those days, I don't remember exactly which days. One of those days I said the etc directory on the computer. Let's say if we look at the file system. This is a directory that holds all the binary files, most of the programs. Device directory holds most of the devices information, such as hard drive, network, Ethernet card, whatever the computer hardware is. Home has users home directories. These are called libraries. In Windows, they are called DLLs. Media is usually CD-ROM drive. Opt is optional. Root's home directory. The SBIN directory and bin directory is almost the same, but most of the time SBIN directory has higher level of executions. Sys directory is related to the system's operating system. User directory has mostly user-related, library-related files. Okay, we'll take a look. Boot directory is used when the computer boots. It gets the information from there. etc directory holds most of the configuration files. This is the computer libraries. What is libraries? Libraries are when a computer runs. It uses a lot of programs, hundreds and thousands of programs. Okay, so most of those programs are linked to each other. Okay, they are called shared objects. The file name ends with .so. Okay, local, usually most of the time, a lot of Linux doesn't have it, but Amazon Linux has it. Okay, local files. MNT is usually an optional directory. We'll see how we use it. Proc is when the computer is running. It basically is the RAM. This is how the computer uses the RAM. It loads all the information on the directory. Run is also almost the same thing. TMP is, last time we talked about TMP, that anybody can write on it. The computer also uses this TMP for the RAM purposes. Okay, and var is, it's called variable directory. Most of the time the logs are there. So anyway, we're looking at a configuration directory, which is etc SSH. Okay, on the etc excuse me, on the etc SSH directory, the most important file in this directory is called sshd_config. All of them are important, but these two, without these two, the computer will not function. The computer will not let anybody log in. Okay, so this one changes the entire computer's environment. SSH config usually changes the user environment. SSHD changes the computer environment. Okay, so as we saw before, to refresh your memory, see, we tried to log into the other computer using a user called JDO. We know we created the same user account on both machines. Find at, let's go to the other computer, which is server 2. Okay, the computer says permission denied. Okay, if we do the same thing from this computer, we'll see the same message. This one is 72. Okay, we want to go to this one. This one is 23. And hopefully we'll see the same message. Okay, see the permission denied. Now, let's see how we fix it. Let's say we want to log in using password. We don't want to log in using the keys. Okay, and most of the time, when you are on AWS, all the computers will not, next class on Wednesday, we'll have only one computer using public address and all the other computers will be using private address. So the private address computers, people cannot log in from the internet. We'll see how we log in from one computer only. Keep in mind, working on an IT environment is important. Equally important is that your job, your company has to be secure. Okay, right now, this is a security lapse because anybody can log into our computers from anywhere in the world. Okay, there are probably people who are working somewhere in the basement trying to log into the IP address because they see our port 22 is open. Okay. Now, so how do we fix it? The computer didn't allow us to log in. Okay, how do we fix it? So we do etc. Oh, we are already there. EWD. And let's open this file. That's why you have to learn VI, no exception. SSHD_config. Okay, this is a configuration file. Okay, and we'll search for a keyword called password. Capital P A. So how do you search it? You put a /. First of all, you hit escape. / PASS. Okay, see, hit enter, the computer will put you in that line. See, there are 2 lines in here, right? 3 lines. One says password authentication equal to yes, but in front of it, it has a pound sign. So anytime, about 99.9% of the time, if it is a system related file, if it has a pound sign in front of it, then it's a comment. Okay, basically that line is inactive. If it doesn't have a pound sign or hash sign, whatever you call it, then that line is active. Okay, see, it says password authentication equal to no. Let's make this file inactive. Okay, so we put a pound sign. How did you do that? We put an I. You have to learn VI. I sent you the link. I'll send you again. Without VI, you cannot work on Linux, period. Okay. So we make this line as inactive and let's make this line as active. Okay. See now, this line is active and save it. :WQ. We saved it. Okay. Let's. Okay. So we did it on one computer. We'll do it on the other computer later on. Let's see how one works. So once you change a configuration file, if it is related to a process, okay, we'll talk about process next week. If it is related to a process, then you have to restart the process. Okay, how do we know it is related to the process or not? PS-AUX. What is PS? We'll learn next week. Grep SSH. Let's see how the computer is running SSH. See, it is related to a process. If it is not, then you will not see it on the list. Okay. Anytime it is related to a process, you have to restart. How do we restart? Systemctl restart SSHD. Okay. Now we changed it on server 1. Let's try to log in from server 2 to server 1. Let's see if this computer allows it. So we type again SSH
Huh?
JDO number 5 at that computer's IP address is 23. It is asking this time password. So whatever password I assign. See, now I am on server 1. Okay. If we take a look at it here, let's type who. It says logged in as EC2 user. So logged into this computer as a EC2 user, and also JDO. Logged in from where? From this computer, from 172. Okay. Now let's try to log into this computer. Let's see what I find. This computer's IP address is 172, right? SSH JDOE number 5.
Sorry, there's some background noise. So, brother, can you mute yourself? Who is having the...
We are trying to go to server 2. Okay.
Go. Sit.
We are trying to go into this computer. This computer's IP address is 172. Let's see. It says permission denied. Why? Because this computer is still not allowing password authentication. So let's become root. Okay, let's make the same change. SSHD. Okay, and search for, here it is. Let's activate this line and let's deactivate this line, because one is opposite of the other. This one said password authentication equal to yes. This one said password authentication equal to no. That means don't let anybody in with the password. Okay. Logging into a computer using keys is most secure. Okay, but for our learning process, we have to learn all the processes. How do you log in using password? How do you log in using keys? Now this computer, we allowed it. Still it will not be working because we didn't activate, we didn't restart the process yet. Systemctl restart SSHD. Now if we try,
sorry, brother. There's a background noise. There's a background noise.
See,
somebody's to mute themselves.
JDO5 at to this password, this IP address. We are asking for the password, and boom, we are in server 2. If we look at server 2, let's see if we do who or ID. Who, the computer says that JDO5 logged in from this computer. Okay, if we do a command called last, okay, the last command shows JDO logged in to pseudo terminal 1 from this computer on August 15, 2346 and still logged in. Let's say if we log out from here And if we do a last command on this computer, it says JDog was logged in and he basically spent only few seconds in here. That's why you see 00. Okay, not even 1 minute. If it is 1 minute, then it will show 1 minute. Okay, now let's see if we do user add, let's say another user. User add, let's say, this time, let's say JOHN. Okay, send the password. This computer's IP address we all know by now, hopefully. And so it's 172. So if we try to log in from this computer as John, let's see what happens. SSH JOHN at the IP address of the computer. See, we are logged in. We logged in on server 2, this computer. Okay, if we type 2, the computer shows that the user John logged in. Okay. There are a lot more to talk about on user management. So for the Maghrib prayer, we'll take another 15-minute break. We'll come back at 8:05. We'll finish hopefully by 9:30 or so today. Okay, because we are actually far behind. And Wednesday we'll have full class, and next week for the summer break I have to take my sons to different places, so next week there will not be any classes. So even if we cover, let's say, lots of stuff today, and by Wednesday you will have at least 2 weeks to digest. Okay, so let's come back on 8:05. Okay. So let's use another user then. Forget about this user. Let's say this time we'll call user add David. Okay, let's assign him a password. Okay. Let's do the same thing on this computer also. You can use multiple commands on the same line as long as it is separated with a semicolon or pound sign or ampersand sign. We'll talk about those later on. But now let's say okay. Now let's generate a key as we said before. Let's say server 2, David wants to log in from server 1 to server 2 without password, using his own keys. Okay, so how does David get his own key? Let's become the user, right? And then we'll use a command called ssh-keygen. -t, key for type, RSA. RSA is the key type. Okay. You hit enter. It is asking where do you want to save it? Home david.ssh id_RSA. You say yes. No passphrase. Okay. Now if you look at his home directory, there is a directory called .ssh. Remember that .path, our skeleton directory has this file, we created it. That's why every time we create a user account, that file is copied to the user's home directory. Now, let's go to .ssh. Okay, we see 2 files. private key and public key. Okay, so let's copy this file to this computer. You know, we want to log in as user David from server 1 to server 2. So we'll do SCP. SSH is for secure shell. SCP is for secure copy. Copy this file to this computer. Why do you want to copy it? Let's say you want to copy in the home directory. It is asking, do you accept the fingerprint? Yes. Okay, so we copied it. Let's come over here. Let's become user David. We created this user account also on this computer. See, we are on this computer as user David, and over here we are on server 2 as user David. Let's do ls-a. As you can see, there are 4 files in here, and this is the file we copied. Remember, on this computer, we changed the exoskeleton, but not on that computer. See, over here, we created the .plot file, but not on the other computer. That's why we don't see that file in there. Okay, now we created that file, we copied that file using this command, right? There is another command also. Okay, we'll use that command another day. Now, we copied this file from this computer to server 2. So what we'll do with this file is, let's create a directory on server 2 where user David wants to come to .ssh. Let's go to .ssh. Okay, we'll create a file called authorized keys. Okay, we'll create a file. Okay, let's create another way. All right, this file is located in here, right? ID_RSA. Let's do this. Cat ID .ssh. Remember, we created that file. Authorized _KUIS. You can do it for only for the first time. Okay, let's do double bracket then. Double bracket then is, if the file already exists, then don't overwrite, just append. Okay, so basically we are saying open this file. See, in Linux, one of my manager told me one time that in Linux or Unix, you don't have to work hard. You just have to work smart. Okay, you just have to work continuously, and when you do the work, try to understand what you are doing. So basically what we are doing is, we created the directory, right, using mkdir over here, right? So what we are saying is, we are opening that file, cat command opens a file, then we are appending the output to this directory. Underneath this directory, there is a file called authorized keys. If that file exists, then it will append. If it doesn't exist, then it will create. Okay, right now, let's cancel it here. if we do, let's do pwd, this is where that file is, right? If we take a look at .ssh, nothing is there, right? Now let's run this command. Not that caret underscore c. Okay. If we put, remember, if you put only one ampersand sign, you have to work, when you work on Linux, you have to be very, very careful. Let's say if there are other keys in there, and if you put a 1 ampersand sign, greater than sign, then everything will be overwritten. Okay. If you put double greater than sign, then it will be appended. Basically, whatever is there, it will be saved and new information will be added. So let's assume that there are other information in there. Okay. Let's hit enter. Now, if we take a look, this file, see that file came from David at server1.example.com. Now let's try, let's say this computer is not going to allow password authentication anymore. Remember before we were able to do that. David at this computer's IP is 172. Okay, we'll use name on the next class once we learn TCP IP. Right now, we didn't configure a name server yet, so we cannot use the name. We have to use the IP. Okay, in real world, you never, I will not say never, but you usually don't use the IP address to log into the computers. You will use usually a computer name. Okay. So you were able to log into server 2. Now, let's say this computer decided that no, password authentication is not possible anymore. Why? Because password authentication is not safe. Remember, we commented this line. This time we will uncomment this line and we will activate this line. So what will say, what will happen is password authentication is no. Once we save this file, restart the process, user David cannot log into server 2 anymore using password. So remember, we have to restart the process, systemctl restart sshd. Okay, now let's try. See, it says permission denied. You cannot log in using password. Okay, now let's see what happened. SSH, let's say the user David, we try to log in. Okay, still it says password permission denied. Okay, let's see why. First of all, so dash David, okay, on server 2, ls-a. So what we have to do is ls-altr, right? Look at this directory's permission. This directory's permission should not be like that. It should be chmod 700.ssh. Basically, what we are saying is that on that directory, only the user has read, write, and execute permission. Users group doesn't have any permission. The others doesn't have any permission. Okay, that's exactly what it means. Let's go inside that directory. Okay, remember we created that file. It's called authorized keys. that one's permission should be chmod 600. User David has read write, nobody else has any permission. Okay, now let's try again. Okay, boom. See, we are able to log into server 2 without the password. See, we are at server 2. Before we change the permission. Okay. When this is where we try to change the permission without changing the permission, but we are not able to log in. Okay. Now we change the file permission, everything is in place, and now we are able to log in without any password. Let's try from server 2 to server 1. Okay, same thing here. User David, let's say if we try, this computer's IP address is 23. As user David, let's try to SSH. Okay, it is asking for the password. Why? Because we didn't set up the keys. Number one. Number two, this computer, server 1, is still allowing users to log in with a password. Let's say server 1 will also decide at one point that no, nobody will be able to log in using the password. They have to log in using their keys. So in that case, we have to create the key. So let's say user David, he has to generate his own keys. SSH keygen -t RSA. Enter, enter. Oh. Let's see. Oh, maybe we already created the keys. Okay, let's do it again. You want to override? Yes, why not? Okay, now see that .ssh directory is created. Let's go there. We should see 2 files. Oh, now there is another one. This file is called, oh, we're on server 1. Okay. This file is called known hosts. This file will have all the computer information this computer has ever logged into. Let's log into itself. Let's see what happens. This computer's IP address we know is 23. You can do that. So let's say as user David, let's log in to, let's SSH into itself. Okay. Okay, look at the known host file. So if you log into 50 computers, there will be 50 lines. Okay, this computer logged into this computer and that computer. Okay, this is actually, even though it shows like 3 lines, but actually it's a 1 line. Okay, it's a long public key line. Now it's called known host. Okay, so from this computer, let's copy this file. Remember, we copied from that computer to server 2. Huh. Okay, so on server 2, let's generate the keys. SSH-kgen -t RSA. Okay, this time we do see 2 files. authorized keys, and this file. So we need to copy this file to server 1. Server 1's IP address we know is 23, ends with 23. Okay, let's go to server 1. On user David's home directory, there should be a file called id.rsa.pub. See, we copied it there. Let's do the same thing. Cat .ssh slash. The file name has to be 100% correct. Authorized keys. Authorized underscore keys. Let's change the permission. .700.ssh and 600 on the file. Okay, I don't have to go in there to change it. I can type the whole path starting from .ssh. Okay, now let's say server 1 decided to stop using, server 1 decided to stop user logging in using their password. Let's see, sshd_config, and this time we'll comment out this line and we'll activate this line. Remember, we have to restart the process. Okay, now let's try. Is user David logging to server 1. Server 1's IP address again is ends with 23, and we are at server 2. So let's log in. There you go. See, we are at server 2. We logged in without any password. Okay, now say for example, this will be the last one. Let's say on server 1. Okay, let's become both. Now let's say we create another user account. Let's say user add, this time let's say 4. Okay, let's create on both computers, same user. Okay, no password. Okay, they will not log in using password. They will be logging into both computers using SSH keys. So sudo home, as usual, user Paul doesn't have a SSH directory. So let's create one, SSH -keygen -t RSA. On this computer also, EAEL. Okay. We are on server 1 on this computer as user Paul, and we are on server 2 as user Paul. Okay. So let's do run the same command on both computers. Enter, 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 enter. Okay. ls -a, we do see that .ssh. Let's go there. As usual, we see those two files. Let's open that file. Okay, and we see those lines. Now, let's say you don't have, you cannot copy it. Say, for example, from computer to computer. In order to copy it, you need the password. Let's say your computer will not allow SSH. If you don't have SSH access, you don't have SCP access. Okay, so how you change, how you use the keys, or how you transfer the keys. Let's say user Paul want to log in from server 1 to server 2. Let's go to server 2.ssh directory. We do see that file. Oh, user Paul doesn't have the authorized keys because this is the first time he's trying to log in. So let's vi authorized. Okay. So what you do is you copy. You can copy all of them together, but you have to make sure that this is only one line. How do you make sure this is only one line? Hit escape and then try to go to the beginning of the line. If it goes something like, say for example, let me do this. Let's say I copy these 4 lines. Okay. Now, I hit escape. If you already learned VI, if you use the K keys, right, hit escape and then K, you see, if you see that it moves one line at a time, J moves one line at a time, that means you have multiple lines. Look at on this one. It is not multiple lines, it is only one line. Okay, if you are not familiar with the VI yet, please do that. Without VI, absolutely you cannot work on Linux systems. Okay, so you have to make sure this is only one line. Now let's delete these lines. Okay, now let's save it. Remember that authorized keys file has to be 600. Right now it is 664. So chmod 600 authorized keys. And the directory .ssh has to be 700. .ssh is already 700, which is fine. Now let's try to log in from server 1. SSH as user Paul. See, if you don't specify a username, that means you are trying to log in using that particular user. Let's take a look at the IP address. And suite 172. Okay. It is asking, do you want to accept the fingerprint? Yes. And that's it. We are able to log in as user Paul on server 2. If we try from server 2 to server 1, let's see if it works. As user Paul, if we try to log in, we want to accept the fingerprint, yes, but it will say permission denied. Why? Because we didn't copy this key, we didn't copy user's Paul key to server 1 yet. Okay, let's try it. pwd cd2.ssh. Okay, here is his keys. This one. Here is the ID underscore pub. We have to copy this file. Okay, let's copy these lines. Make sure you start from here. You cannot leave any character. GIAUTHO underscore, sorry, authorized, KEYS, I for insert. Okay, see, this time it became multiple lines. See that? It cannot be. It cannot be multiple lines, then it will not work. So what we have to do is copy from here to this character. And then copy from here to this character. Okay, now it's become one line. See, I'm trying to do a J. It's not going down because there is no other lines. It is only one line. Save it. Change the permission. Okay. .ssh directory have to have permission also 700. Okay. Now let's try as user Paul to log into server 1. Server 1's IP address we know is MC23. Okay. SSH 23. You want to accept the fingerprint? Yes. And as you can see, we are able to log in from server 2 to server 1 as Paul. Okay. Very simple way to fix the name resolution, but usually it doesn't work in this way. Very simple way, like for example, if we say ping server 2, it will not work because the computer doesn't know the server 2's name. Very simple way to fix it is there is a file called etchosts. On that file, this computer's IP is this. On that file, you type this IP, and then you put the computer name, server 2, let's say its nickname, and FQDN is its full name, example.com. Let's say we want to put server 1's IP address also in there. This is server 1. Okay. Let's copy these two lines. We'll populate the other computer also. Let's save it. You have to use the exclamation mark on this file to save it. Why? WQ saves it, but if the file is read-only, then you have to force it to save it. Since this file is read-only, so we use WQ exclamation mark. Okay. Let's do the same thing on this computer. Okay, let's save it. Again, WQ. See, if I just type WQ. Oh, okay. So it looks like it's not read-only. I thought it is read-only. Let's see, host. Let's see. No, it's not read-only, it's read-write. Okay. Now, let's say if we now ping server 1, So the server 2 from server 1. See, it will work. No? Oh. Let's see what. That's fine. 172.31.11.172. Why it doesn't work? Okay, let's see. This could be a EC2 issue, but normally it should work. Okay, so it looks like the okay, I know one. It should work. Okay, it knows itself, but it doesn't know the other one. It knows the IP. Oh, okay, I know why. Because on the security group, ICMP is not allowed. Okay, that's fine. We'll deal with it once we go to AWS. So let's leave it here today. That's actually.
So if you try to restart network service,
No,
I think it should work.
No. On Etsy host, you don't have to restart anything. Okay. Like for example, what you're saying is, it is related to the security group, not with the network. Okay, see, there is no process running called network. Okay, this is related to the security group because on security group, we did not allow let's see. This is the host, right? So let's see the security group. Security on the security group, it has only SSH allowed, right? So if we do, let's say, on the security group, okay, if we allow this one, schedule is, let's do, oh, I see. If we do this, yeah. So those. Now let's see. There you go. Okay. If we try from server 1, server 2 to server 1, it should work. Okay. That was related to a EC2 issue that is called security group. Okay. We'll talk about security group once we go to EC2. I mean AWS. If we do everything now, then it will be too much. Today is actually a lot. Okay. And hopefully I'll not lose the video, and inshallah by 11 you'll have it
by this week. When will it be uploaded?
As soon as see, this Zoom video has to be converted to the YouTube format, and that takes today it's about 3 hours, so it will take at least an hour or so. Okay.
Okay.
And then upload, it takes another even though I have a gigabyte speed, still it takes at least 15.
That's no problem. Just looking back at what you've taught us, it really helps me a lot.
Yeah, and today actually we covered a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so you will have it inshallah tonight. So I will see you on Wednesday, and
Thank you.
next week, Monday and Tuesday there will not be any classes.
So, sir,
Yeah, right.
please send this PDF documents, whatever you follow for the class.
Okay, I'll do that also.
Thank you. Jazakallah.
Huh?
Islam, is there any previous recording that we can look into? Or
As I said, the last class I couldn't save it. That's why actually the last class we covered from the beginning today. Okay.
okay. So there's no video at all uploaded, or is
No.
there anything that?
No, we covered everything today, whatever the last class was.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Simon.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So let me stop.